It was only that one time. It was college. Things were crazy. Folks, hey, welcome to Retro Reload. I am your host, completely uncontroversial Dash V. And with me today, I've got Jeremy, and it looks like somebody else has hijacked our broadcast here. So, hey, Jeremy.
How you doing? And we have a special guest tonight. Who is
He might
it?
still be setting up his stuff. He's actually a return. He's actually a return guest. So he got the shout out invite kind of last minute because we're down a few folks. It's G at over there. G's in the next level. So if he's able to join with us a bit later, we'll definitely include in the conversation, or we might just get some really good, awesome, sexy thumbnail action. Down there in the
Like so focused right now.
Absolutely. So, Lister's Mate, we want to thank you, my friend, for being in the chat. My goodness, Lister's Mate has been active since 15 minutes before the show got started.
Yeah. Every week he's in there early.
Every week he's in there early, and he comes in early and he leaves late. We love Lister's Mate. Thank you so much for being on the.
He said he can't hear us right now. Dash.
What's that?
He can't hear us right now.
Ah, okay. So, G's having a bit of trouble with the audio there. Yes, we were able to hear him. He could not hear us, unfortunately, and that's okay. Again, I want to mention we kind of caught him last minute. Said, "Hey, we got an open slot. Do you want to come on in?" And he was being a good sport, hopping right in. So, G, whether we're able to get you on this show or not, thank you so much for trying. We'll definitely get you set up proper on an upcoming show in the future. So, especially to talk about it. He's got a new show, actually. Did you hear?
No, what's it about?
He's actually working on a show called, I think it's called My Muse, and he gives different his take on different things. In fact, let me see if I can pull it up and tell you what this episode is going to be about for G. Let's see. He says tomorrow, in the debut of my candid series, The Muse, I look at how Nintendo should make an N64 Classic Edition. So that's what G will be talking about tomorrow.
He's never got a show for that one.
Yeah. So, Jeremy, like you were wanting to talk on the show in general about you were hearing rumors that there's going to be an N64 Mini. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm excited because I'm a huge N64 fan. It's probably my favorite system of all time. But if it's going to be anything like the NES Classic, I won't bother getting it till later. And if it's cheap. Because, okay, here we go again.
Yeah, George Carlin joined the video. Wait, you're not George Carlin.
I don't think he can hear us still.
Don't think he can hear us. So
anyway, yes, excited for an N64 Classic. Like I said, if it's going to be hard to get or expensive, not worth my time.
No, I hear you there. The for me, I guess personally, I feel like if I don't want to have a whole bunch of NES, I don't want to have a whole bunch of Nintendo branded minis that I can't possibly get my friggin' hands on. What I would rather have, make a metric F ton of NES minis.
Because they're going to sell.
And then, once you've just flooded the market with those so that,
everybody has one.
Pick them up all over the place, then go on to SNES Mini and then go on to N64 Mini. And because right now all I'm seeing is, so I don't have an NES Mini, but I want one. I don't have an SNES Mini, but I want one. And it's not that I don't have them because I don't have the money or anything like that, or I'm too lazy. It's literally it's because I don't want to camp outside of a store.
Yeah.
Right. The night before or every single night following, hoping, right? I don't want to be the guy that's calling Walmart, Target, and electronic, calling GameStop. I almost called them.
I'm employed. I think I've better things to do than that.
Right. It's like I don't want to be that guy every day. Got any SNES Minis? Got any SNES Minis? Got any SNES Minis? And yeah, so it's just kind of really really frustrating, I guess, for me. I went to.
Would you want it?
Yeah, I went to a Target, and I'm in the electronics section. This is on the day of the release, the morning of the release, right? So I drive to Target on the way to work. I stop in and I go into the electronics section and I'm just looking around to see if they have any, knowing and fully expecting that they're not going to have them. And then I get to the the section where they would be, and I hear the phone ring, and this guy goes over and he's like, oh, he goes over, picks the phone, he's like, hello, Target, on the phone, he was totally pleasant. He's like, "Hello, Target." Blah blah blah. He's like, "No, sorry, no, we ran out. We ran out first thing in the morning. Like as soon as we opened, they were all gone." And he hung up. And I instantly knew. I didn't have to ask what it was because then he went on to say, like, somebody else goes another call about the SNES Mini. He's like 12th one in the last hour. So.
Okay, Lister Mates wants to know: would you want a Game Boy Mini? Of course, I would.
So to that I have to say not really necessary. Like here's what I would like to see happen, in all honesty. What I would like to see happen is I would like to see relaunches of the original hardware. That's
interesting.
That's what I would actually like to see. Like the mini, the emulation, whatever, right? I would like to see a relaunch of the actual NES. I would like to see a relaunch of the actual Game Boy, a relaunch of the actual N64. I mean, the games already exist. They've already been coded up. The consoles already, the plans have already been drafted, etc. It's clear that there's a market for these things, and there's even folks still making games. I'm sure you'd get a couple of developers to go back and make games for these things if you relaunch the old systems.
I kind of think, well, it won't be worth the time because we can't sell millions of them.
I don't know if the SNES Mini and the NES Mini are any indication, right? People want it. People want it. So I'll tell you what I do want to see though, Lister's Mate. What I really, besides maybe my pie in the sky ideal of like seeing the consoles relaunch, I want to see Nintendo get up off its keister and actually give us a functional virtual console for the Switch. Like, what the heck, man?
Still having issues?
What's that?
It's still having issues?
No, there's no virtual console on the Switch.
I thought there was. I thought it was going to take a month or so.
Nope. The closest that we've gotten to it is the Nintendo Arcade Archives. They're re-releasing Nintendo IP arcade games like Mario Brothers. The original Mario Brothers came out last week. I don't know if the next one will be next week or if they're going to release them once a month or whatever. But like, yeah. So here's the deal. So Verse Super Mario Brothers, which is the arcade version of Super Mario Brothers 1, is going to hit the Switch before any actual Nintendo game hits the Switch, other than NES Golf. Did you hear about that one, Jeremy?
Yeah, I heard about it. I obviously have a Switch, so can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so the deal is every Nintendo Switch apparently has a copy of NES Golf with an emulator. So there already is a functional NES emulator for
Makes you wonder what they're going to do in the future with that.
Yeah, so now supposedly, this is rumor now, I haven't been able to confirm it. Supposedly, if you set your time, you have to do this non-internet connected. So if you make your system non-internet connected, you have to be running a 1.0 firmware, so it could basically have never been hooked up and connected to the internet. You basically took it fresh out of the box.
Really?
That's the rumor so far. Nobody's well, I can't say nobody. There's a couple videos online that I can point you to where folks confirm and show this actually happening. They show the unlock, they show all that other stuff happening. But and supposedly a handful of other people have been able to do it too. But here's the current rumored or thought to be activation method. And again, we don't have any documentation on this. This is totally people either reverse engineering the firmware or trying different things. But basically, it is confirmed that the NES game is there. NES Golf is there. The unlock method is what is subject to rumor right now. But the rumor has it that if you set the system time to Iwata's date of passing, the day that he died, and if you have a 1.0 firmware Switch that's never had a single update, and you hold the Joy-Cons and you do Iwata's movement, which he would do in the Nintendo Directs, that it actually will. You'll hear Iwata
I find it
say.
hard to believe.
You'll hear Iwata say the Japanese word for direct, and then it loads up NES Golf. So again, somebody shows. I'll have a link down in the doodly doo. Somebody actually shows this happening. It's not refuted at all by anybody that NES Golf is there. So the only thing that's rumor right now is really
That's interesting.
the method
I might
to
have to
activate
try when I get mine, because mine probably be a not connected one.
Absolutely, absolutely. So maybe it does work on other models of the NES Mini, or I'm sorry, of the Nintendo Switch. Maybe other versions of the Switch actually support it. We don't know. We really don't know. So, folks, if you have tried this on your Switch, figured out a way to get it working, especially if you've recorded this in some way, let us know. Post us a link. Which brings me to the next subject, Jeremy. You probably heard me going off on this last week offline. I'm going to bring it to the public. So, folks, I want to make it clear, especially because you guys have seen Jeremy and I streaming stuff from PlayStation 4 and stuff from the Xbox One. You're going to see a lot more of that. You've seen me streaming stuff through Steam from my PC and everything. I've streamed off and on some Nintendo stuff. Folks, you're not going to see me streaming any more Nintendo stuff. We are at Retro Reload are registered members of the Nintendo Creators Program. However, Nintendo's doing some really puzzling things. I'm going to read you the email that they sent me, and then I'm going to read you
Was this
policies.
to you or the show?
This was to the show. They emailed the show. So they emailed the Retro Reload account, and they said, "Thank you for using the Nintendo Creators Program. We've updated the Nintendo Creators Program user guide with information on how revenue generated during live stream broadcasts on YouTube will be handled in the Nintendo Creators Program. Live streaming on YouTube falls outside the scope of the Nintendo Creators Program. This means that you cannot broadcast content on YouTube Live from the account you have registered to the Nintendo Creators Program. Please check the user guide for details. Thank you for your ongoing support of the Nintendo Creators Program. As YouTube continues to evolve, we will work to provide you timely information to help you manage your account with the Nintendo Creators Program." So basically, the Nintendo's Creators Program, which was created to handle people streaming Nintendo's content on YouTube, no longer handles people streaming Nintendo's content on YouTube. What the literal bleep, Nintendo? Seriously. So apparently now you can only stream Nintendo First, it has to be in the whitelist of Nintendo authorized content. Then you have to record offline, I guess, and put it together. So if you're doing like an offline review and then you put some footage together and then you post it, that's okay. But if you're streaming on, say, Twitch, or if you're streaming on, say, YouTube Live specifically, which they call out,
Okay.
that's not supported. Hey there, my friend. Can you hear us? Sounds like he can't hear us. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the other YouTube Live. The other Nintendo Creators Program article. So if I actually go to the link that they provide me for https://r.ncp.nintendo.net/guide, and I look down at the registration rules, it says, quote, "You can only use the channels or videos that contain copyrighted content related to game titles specified by Nintendo, and they must be your original creations. Be sure your videos do not contain copyrighted material from third parties or content from unconfirmed game titles. See here for a list of Nintendo game titles specified for use with this program." So that part is fine. This is the new part that they added. Live streaming on YouTube falls outside the scope of the Nintendo Creators Program, like the email says. You cannot broadcast content on YouTube Live from the account you have registered to the Nintendo Creators Program. If you plan to broadcast content on YouTube Live, you have a couple of options. First, you can broadcast content on YouTube Live from a channel that is not registered to the Nintendo Creators Program, or you can cancel your channel's registration to the Nintendo's Creators Program and instead register your videos containing Nintendo's IP to the program separately. videos which had been previously registered through your channel would need to be re-registered individually. Nintendo, you know what? That's an awful lot of work. Some of us content creators have literally hundreds of videos that we've used before, totally legit, using your program. I'm not going to create 2 separate YouTube accounts just for the whole, like, here's what Nintendo's okay with, here's for everything else. Like, I'm just going to not stream your content. And I think a lot of other people are just going to not stream your content. So
it's like you didn't want us promoting their stuff.
I know, right? Like, the Switch has been a massive success. Just about digging you out of the pit that you dug at the Wii U. Congrats on handing us 2 shovels to dig the pit deeper. Like, I have no idea why Nintendo does not want us to help them be successful. I honestly don't get it.
So I plan to do an unboxing within 6 months. So when I get mine,
yeah,
you know, go with my story, which I won't talk about the story right now because it's a special episode coming out.
Well, I got to tell you, and folks, you're gonna want to hear the story. It is a great story. But yeah, I mean, I think the unboxing will be fine. Certainly, talking about Nintendo games and things like that is going to be fine. But you're not going to be able to show any footage, right? You're not going to be able to actually stream. So this is coming out right before Mario Galaxy, right? So, or not Mario Galaxy. I'm sorry, Mario Odyssey.
Odyssey, yeah.
Right. So what? You don't want people streaming Mario Odyssey, right?
Another thing might be is because they want to see people's reactions. Like, because, you know, when you're reacting to a game live, it's hard to control your emotions, or, you know, like, oh, this game sucks now, or something like that.
Yeah, I really don't know. I feel like Nintendo is trying to put the internet genie back in the bottle, like, repeatedly with a lot of the stuff that it's doing. I don't think Nintendo understands as a company. In a couple ways, I don't think they understand. So you build the NES Mini, and it's got all this extra storage space, but you only pack on these limited games that you're able to get the licenses secured for at the time that you launch it, versus you've got a USB, like, interface on there. You couldn't have made it an updatable system. Like, then you could have sold us more games.
And Wi-Fi is not that big anymore. The tennis.
What was that?
But, you can and if you do want to update, Wi-Fi antennas aren't that big anymore. You can easily add it to the NES Classic.
Yeah. So I think I think that's a problem. I think that so Nintendo doesn't understand, apparently, that with the internet now they could release something like the NES Mini and have it be an updatable, system, and they could continue to make money on us. And I mean, here's the deal, right? Like, even with the NES Mini or the SNES Mini sold out, Nintendo could still be making money hand over fist by releasing more games for digital download on those platforms. Nintendo, you're leaving the money on the table. What is the matter with you? And then you come to content creators and you say, hey, about the content that you want to create, yeah, but the live content, don't show our stuff. We don't want you to do that. Like, to me, I think the reaction, right? Like, Nintendo streamed from E3 them showing Mario Odyssey, where, like, Mario, like, rides a dinosaur, and the crowd went ape shit, right? Like, people loved it. Like, Nintendo, you can't have your cake and eat it too, right? Like just imagine how many people went ape over seeing an E3 live stream of Mario riding a dinosaur. Now imagine it's a kid playing the game with their mom, and the mom is laughing and chuckling seeing the kid as Mario running around as a dinosaur. Like, I mean, that's free advertising. That's free goodwill. That's showing exactly what you want, like couch multiplayer, right? Family friendly,
family oriented, all that.
Absolutely. Like, Nintendo, what's the matter with you? What are you afraid of? So we probably will be, folks, with Retro Reload, we probably will be ending our participation in the Nintendo Creators Program. I can't speak for everybody. We're gonna have a discussion behind the scenes, but certainly we're going to be discussing it and deciding, is it even worth it to stream Nintendo games at all?
It's not like we're making money off our videos either.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo creators, to be clear, folks, like, okay, Nintendo owes me like 10 cents for last year. That is it. That's it. So it's not like we're making millions of dollars. It's not like Nintendo's making millions of dollars. Yeah, like 10 cents. You know what, Nintendo, have the 10 cents back. The only reason that I even signed up for the Nintendo Creators Program was because they've been going after everybody, right? They've been doing the takedown notices for people streaming their stuff. So We wanted to play by the rules. We wanted to be legit. We signed up for the program. And then a year later, they send us this notice that, like, the program doesn't apply to us.
Well, sure, they sent it to everybody, though, besides us.
Yeah, although I have to say, right, at least Nintendo finally did directly address this, because I was getting sick of filing, when the few times that I did stream Nintendo content, we got
Yeah,
flagged.
strike.
Yeah, we got flagged, and we got Retro Reload got strikes from us against Nintendo, and I would have to go contest it with Google and say, no, they gave us permission. And then come to find out, now Nintendo's saying, no, we didn't. So, George, my friend, is the new computer? Is the force strong with you?
It doesn't know.
My goodness. So,
and he says he wants in on this conversation too. I assume Nintendo.
I can tell he wants in. He's got that face. He's like, I want in on this conversation. So, all right. So the next thing Nintendo branded, since we were talking about the SNES Mini, IGN recently did a review of Star Fox 2. Those of you that know, Star Fox 2 never actually got a release on the SNES. It was developed and it was completed, but they decided not to release it because they were afraid that it would give people bad taste in their mouth for 3D on consoles, and they didn't want that to happen prior to the N64 launching. So the next Star Fox that we all saw after Star Fox for the SNES was Star Fox 64 on the N64. Both of which were amazing games. So most of us, if we haven't played it on a repro cart, which is what this is a repro cart based on the last known beta. And this basically, somebody downloaded a ROM, somehow they snuck it out of the Nintendo gates, and they took another cart, put together a board, flashed a ROM, and then boom, there you go. So can already say from screenshots and video captures that I've seen from folks that the Star Fox 2 that shipped with the SNES Mini is a different version. There's a different title screen. The translation is different. So folks that are wondering, like, did they just download the ROM, right? The ROM hack with the English translation and release it? No, they didn't. It's a completely different translation and localization than the one that was on the repro cart. So I'm looking forward to eventually being able to get my hands on an SNES Mini and play the real finished Star Fox 2. What I mainly wanted to mention, though, is I take issue with IGN's rating on this. Originally, they rated this at a 4 out of 10, and they got a lot of backlash, so they've updated their rating to 5 out of 10. To put it bluntly, both are total bullshit. And here's why. I'll actually give you like a concrete reason of why I think that they're total bull. Basically, the reviewer is judging Star Fox 2 based on current 3D games and the current state of 3D technology, rather than actually looking at this objectively through the lens of what else was available in 1990, right? Like, as a sequel to Star Fox, did it improve on the formula? And I have to say that, yes, it did. Having just played the beta, not even the finished version, but the beta version, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize about Star Fox for the original NES is it was basically an on-rails shooter. It was not an open world shooter. It felt like it, but you could only go so far to the left and so far to the right. Basically, your ship, right, was really on rails. And versus Star Fox 2, actually, it still has some on rails sections, but it actually has lots of sections that are true 3D. You can roam around the environment, backtrack, do all this stuff that just wasn't possible in the original. So this is a true 3D game, not just an on rails game. The other thing, too, that they did that was really kind of unique for this particular game is that they experimented around with the morphing ability. You can go from a ship to kind of like a mech and walk around and do things like that. So in fact, when you're doing the 3D mode where you're running around and everything, That's where they got that dynamic from. That dynamic would later come back in Star Fox Zero for the Wii U, but there was a lot to kind of be said for this. Another thing too that they kind of overlooked is that the graphics are definitely a marked improvement. If you compare Star Fox 2 to Star Fox 1, Star Fox 1 was just polygon graphics with shading. Star Fox 2, there's actually some texture maps on some of the polygons and everything. They're not super sophisticated. No, they're nowhere near Doom level quality. Neither Doom for the x86 or Doom for the PlayStation 4. But still, to actually have polygons with textures and things like that on a console like the SNES, this certainly pushed it to its limits. So I have to say, if you're going to review the game, right, I can understand it not being a 10 out of 10, even, if looked at objectively. It didn't really improve on the frame rate of the original Star Fox. It didn't really, I guess, other than the open roaming and the transformation ability, it didn't really add substantially to the Star Fox universe. You could beat the game in roughly 30 to 40 minutes easily, depending on the mode, the difficulty mode that you're on. But that said, I could beat the original Star Fox in 35 minutes. So it's not any worse than the original Star Fox. It is better in some ways. So I could see it not getting 10 out of 10, like maybe getting an 8 out of 10, a 7 out of 10. I don't see a 5 out of 10 is just plain spiteful. Like there's no reason that game is a 7 out of 10. I've played it and beaten it. Or I'm sorry, 5 out of 10. There's no reason that it's a 5 out of 10 game. What do you think, Jeremy? Like, do you think it should be judged compared to current gen games because that's what it's quote competing against, or do you think that it should be looked at
for classic look? You got to compare it to classic games. If they're trying to compete with today's technology, today's controls, today's graphics. Yeah, it'd be 5 out of 10. But from what I've seen, it's just trying to make a classic game in modern times. So you got to send yourself back to those times.
I 100% agree. What do you guys think in the chats there, listers, mate? What do you think?
I think G's still there too.
Just going through the chat to see if anybody's going on about my tirade.
Just to make some corrections up the YouTube thing and on Nintendo.
And Lister's Mate says Nintendo is one entity, YouTube is another. Because of copyright laws, Nintendo isn't licensed to be shown on YouTube. It's the same reason why CBS can't show NBC shows. Okay, not entirely sure about that, Lister.
Yeah, we're checking that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a lawyer. That said, it would seem to me if they're not licensed to be shown on YouTube, they shouldn't be licensed to be shown on YouTube at all. It shouldn't make a difference whether it's live or time delayed. So, G to the next level. He's with us in the chat. He's with us in spirit. He missed my. I had multiple tirades. G, like I was on a roll. And I agree. A lot of this Nintendo, the streaming stuff, I feel should definitely fall under fair use. I think Nintendo and a lot of other companies, frankly, have been pissing all over fair use, mainly because they have the money and the lawyers to back it up. And I kind of frown on the fact that YouTube has been collecting a lot of ad revenues, but then not really fighting the fight for the little guys that made YouTube the platform that it is. So I feel like they just kind of they use the little guys to build a base, and then I feel like YouTube took the money and ran. So, but that's my personal take on it. So even if you're in the unfortunate situation that even if something does fall under fair use, right, it's you against their army of lawyers. So you're going to be
deep pockets.
Yeah. So G, you can definitely check out. I'm going to drop some links in the doodly-doo for the Nintendo Creators Program. The other thing I don't like too is the way that they word things is really kind of vague in the Nintendo Creators Program. I would like to think what they're talking about is just like, okay, if you have a YouTube Live account, you can't live stream Nintendo content. But the way they word it makes it sound like you can't live stream anything and be a Nintendo Creators Program, participant. I'll read it again for folks like G and others that might have caught it late. This is from the Nintendo Creators Program registration rules. First, you can broadcast content on YouTube Live from a channel that is not registered to the Nintendo Creators Program. Now, they don't say you can broadcast Nintendo content. They just say you can broadcast content. They don't qualify which kind of content. So I assume because I'm on their page that they're referring exclusively to Nintendo content. But since they make a point to exclusively distinguish between live and non-live streaming, and they're very deliberate in their verbiage there, but then they don't make a distinction between Nintendo content or your own content. They're really making it sound like if you do any live streaming, that content should not be. You shouldn't do any live streaming on an account that you can also use for Nintendo Creators Program. And the reason why I think that they may even mean that is because they have to review the content. So if you live stream, some live streamers, right, stream like several times a week. And so now if you got
3 times a day.
Right, exactly. And so I could see Nintendo going, like, are we going to watch literally like hours of this streaming content like a day just for like the 1 or 2 videos that maybe use Nintendo stuff? Every time there's a Nintendo mention, or now we're going to like commit to watching that. And I could see that being a lot of work versus the stuff that gets post-produced and uploaded, I think is much less by comparison. And so it's probably just a way for them to manage the workload. But that also leads me to question, right? Does that mean if I'm still in the Nintendo's Creator Program, like we technically are right now, and I'm continuing to live stream, am I in violation of this agreement? Even if I'm not showing Nintendo content. So I don't want to have to overthink it. I don't want to have to work too hard for streaming, about talking about games and stuff, game-related content. I'm just gonna stop giving Nintendo free advertising.
L in chat said Nintendo is the Apple of video game industry. Their fan base will buy anything, keyword anything, branded from their walled garden. That's what keeps it alive.
You know what, L? I absolutely agree. And as long as demand is going to continue to exceed supply, I don't see that situation changing anytime soon.
He also put journalistic purposes, review, parody, satire, fair use is defined well enough in the U.S. and EU laws. He says Japan may be different.
So G says, I think it's exclusively aimed at their IPs. From what I've read, it only applies to their products. I believe so too, but it's definitely not. It's definitely ambiguously worded on their page. And even as worded, I still take exception to it. Like I still take exception to the fact that I can make a 10-hour post-produced thing and put whatever I want in there and submit it to registration to the creators program, but I can't have like a 10-minute stream. So meanwhile, you've got companies like Sony and Microsoft that are building streaming right into the darn console. We're going to be able to do.
That's told us we can do whatever we want with their games. We can stream it all we like. Make money off it.
Oh yeah, and the way that Nintendo and Sony has done it is actually really smart. Less people think I'm just like a company hater. Like the way that the way that Sony and Microsoft have done the streaming is incredibly smart. It's built into the console. There's an API for it. If the game maker does not want to have their game streamed, they can actually tell the API, cut off streaming at this point, re-enable streaming at this point.
Yeah, I've had that issue before when I stream certain games. I also cut for a while, then I'll go back when I'm not doing certain things.
Now, you know what? As much as I don't like that, I respect that there's certain parts of the experience, maybe a cutscene or a special trophy, or I can understand that there's certain things that they want to have be surprises to the gamer. And And I appreciate that Sony and Microsoft had the foresight to say, hey, you know what? We're going to allow streaming. We're going to make it easy for folks to do. They can either stream with our stuff according to our rules, or it can be Wild West and you can try to sick the lawyers on them, right? I like that they're like, hey, look, let's just do it, but we'll have some constraints, right, to kind of make the content providers happy. And so that's totally, to me, I'm totally fine with that. And they're even making it better, right? The Xbox One X is going to have 4K streaming. The PlayStation Pro is going to do 4K streaming. So I mean, they get the free advertising, and
PlayStation just had an update this morning where it's improving all that right now. Make everything better because I had a download this morning.
Yeah. So now the only thing that's missing from both the PlayStation and the Xbox One X, streaming that I hope that they add in is HDR. I noticed that on my PlayStation 4, connected to my 4K TV, when I'm playing a game in HDR, you might have noticed, guys, a month or two ago, I streamed a couple of different fights that I did in Infamous Second Son, and you might have noticed that they were really bad shifted red. Like everything was like a harsh red tint. I found out later that if I have HDR but I want to stream, I have to turn off HDR in order to stream. So
speaking of Second Son, I've actually been playing that, and it's all right.
It's
Mark Farley from Sony worked on it.
So what are your thoughts on it? My only complaint is it's too much like the first two games. But what are your thoughts?
First one was really repetitive. This one wasn't as bad with the repetitiveness, at least I found. They get annoying though with some of the boss fights because it's like, just threw you in there. It's like, oh shit, what am I gonna do? And you kept recharging. It kind of annoyed me, but I beat it once with good. I'm doing an evil character.
Yeah. One thing I gotta say is it's harder to recharge in this game than it was in the Infamous games.
Yeah.
The Infamous games you could recharge off of practically anything.
That's why you have to seek it sometimes.
Second Son, I get my butt handed to me repeatedly because I can't find enough charging points.
Yeah.
So Lister says, I thought you said it had to be your own content. So to me, you can make your own games with Nintendo Creator and stream it, but not an actual Nintendo game. No, Lister, that's not what they meant. What they said was that you can make your own content using Nintendo stuff, but you can't, for example, stream Nintendo Direct with your commentary. Is like what they're claiming. You can't take like a Nintendo commercial for Super Mario Odyssey and then add your own content. Like you have to. You can stream you playing Mario Odyssey. Well, actually, hang on. Let me refactor my statement. You can record you playing Super Mario Odyssey, put that together in some post-produced thing, right? You edit it in iMovie or Adobe Premiere or Final Cut X or whatever. You put all that together and then you upload it. That's totally legit. But if you stream Super Mario Odyssey live stream, that you can't do, is what according to what they're saying. So, and if they've already streamed something, you can't just grab theirs and then put your stuff on top of it, which makes sense. You can't grab something that's their work and then make it your work. But
okay, Al said what hurts is that Sega is bleeding money, unlike Nintendo. Mario 64 line gets taken down, Sonic 2 HD stays up. Nintendo does not need to do so, be so restrictive, but it hasn't chosen to be, and that's it by L.
It's really interesting, L. Sega, not for nothing, Sega has done takedowns and everything. I think it's a matter of how much plausible deniability do you have. If a company finds out that its intellectual property is being repurposed and used in some way, they have a legal obligation and requirement actually to protect their intellectual property. If they don't protect it, it can become public domain. So and then obviously it becomes harder for them to monetize it down the road. So what Sega has done in the past, though, and I don't know if this is what you're referring to, is that there was a Sonic the Hedgehog, Christian Whitehead, made a version of Sonic the Hedgehog that was he took the original and he took Sonic 2 and added back in like missing levels and incomplete levels like Hidden Palace Zone and things like that. And so one of the things that Sega did is they contacted him and said, "Hey, look, we got to ask you to shut this stuff down, but how would you like to have a job and bring this stuff to iPhone and other platforms?" And so that's how we got Sonic for the iPhone. That's how we got Sonic 2 for the iPhone. And these were, with Sega's resources backing it, they were way better than even Christian was able to do just on his own. And then, you know, led to other stuff like Christian Whitehead. It's his team that brought us Sonic Mania, which is, a lot of people are saying, and I agree with it, the best Sonic the Hedgehog game that's came out in the last decade. So, you're 100% right. Like, Nintendo would just shut them down, tell them to go away, and then move on like nothing happened, just like what happened with the Metroid remake, right? But Sega's a different beast. They do choose to be. So both of them have to enforce their copyrights, and both of them have to make sure that it gets kind of respected. So if they're aware of something, they have to kind of go out after it. But the way they go after it, they 100% get to choose. And Nintendo chooses to wield the ban hammer. Sega chooses to do the whole, hey,
Sega will work with you.
Yeah, do you need a job, my friend? We like money. You like money? We like money. So, and I think that generally is the better way to go. You know, more flies with honey than with vinegar, sort of thing. G the next level says, that's right, Dash. He's referring to my take on what the Nintendo Creators Program allows you to do. Nintendo will still claim monetization on your pre-made content, but with the Creators Program, you still get a portion of the ad revenue, but live streaming is a no-no now. Yep. So, and he also says, yep, Christian Whitehead got a job from Sega with his fan-made work, unlike Nintendo, who would rather just sick lawyers on you. It's 100%. It's true. He adds, Sega's not all roses, though, as was proven by the outstanding Streets of Rage remake that got ceased and desisted. That's an interesting point out there, G. So, now what we don't know yet, and maybe we'll see. Sometimes the way that these happen, at least this is what happened with Steve Snake. I don't know if many people remember Steve Snake. He made, I think it was called K-Gen. But he made a Sega Genesis emulator a good 10 years ago. And this was before you could play any of the Sega Genesis games ported to other consoles like PlayStation or PlayStation 2 or whatever. Anyway, they contacted Steve and they said, hey, look, here's the deal. The work that you've done, this emulator that you built, is amazing, but there's a problem. People are using it for piracy and all this other stuff, and that is not cool. Rather than give you a cease and desist, we'd like to offer you a job, but you can't tell anybody, and you're going to have to stop all development on the emulator pretty much effective immediately. And the job that they offered him turned out to be for, I want to say it's Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection, but that's not true. There were a couple of emulation collections that predated the Ultimate Genesis Collection, and I don't remember off the top of my head what they were, but basically it was Steve Snake rewriting porting his emulators to these home consoles so that they could legitimately Sega could legitimately release their games through emulation to these other consoles. So, and the only notice that you saw from Steve was, hey guys, I just recently got a job, so I'm gonna have to stop development on the emulator. Sorry, right? And then like, I think it was a year or two later, this game collection comes out, and somebody downloads the ISO and rips the ISO off the disc, and they start looking through, and they see like a little README file from Steve Snake, and they're like, son of a gun, that was the job that he got. That was Sega totally hired him, and that whole Sega collection was brought to us by Steve Snake. So maybe a similar thing's happening with the Streets of Rage thing. I'm hoping that Streets of Rage is going to get some love in remix update fashion. I'd love to see a Streets of Rage Mania come out. So I'm still thinking maybe Sega's doing the right thing behind the scenes. So Lister's is saying it sounds to me like that some kind of law needs to be put into place that works like syndication for television syndication, allows for different networks to show different shows from other networks. Um, yeah, I'm not really too sure how that actually, how that actually works out. I don't know that Nintendo is prevented from posting anything to YouTube. I really don't know that I buy that. That said, Lister, you're a pretty smart guy. And usually have your finger on the pulse through multiple communities. So feel free to, if you've got links and stuff that go into a little bit more detail on this, go ahead and drop them onto our Twitter, and we'll take a look. Because that would certainly be telling. Because I am struggling to figure out like why is Nintendo doing this? Why is Nintendo distinguishing between live and non-live content? The only things I can come up with, maybe something like Lister is talking about, maybe there's some restrictions that they have of what they can do, but it's their content. They should be able to do whatever they want. Um, YouTube doesn't require. YouTube lets anybody upload to their servers. So I don't know. G says, he wants he's cool with a Streets of Rage remake as long as they keep it 2D. I 100% agree with that. Yeah, Streets of Rage is meant to be 2D.
We actually skipped the Cuphead discussion.
We totally skipped the Cuphead discussion. I don't know if I want to have the Cuphead discussion. I don't know that I'm qualified to have the Cuphead discussion, but basically, anybody that's heard about Cuphead, first of all, a couple questions people may have. What the hell is Cuphead? So, short version, Cuphead is like a 1930s cartoon take on a shooting game. So imagine a game like Nemesis, Gradius, Life Force. Imagine a game like R-Type, and a game like Contra. I think everybody knows Contra. So imagine those two games as like one game, but with graphics from the 1930s cartoons. That's basically what Cuphead is. It is absolutely gorgeous. The music is spot on, right down to like you can actually hear like you can hear the static, you can hear like the record skip sometimes. There's this old movie filter, so there's like scratches and dirt and dust speckles all over the screen as you are playing the game. It's kind of like a love letter to the 1930s. Now, as part of that, there's a lot of inspiration that you can see throughout this game. There's one character that's definitely looking to be like one of the bosses looks to be like a take on Betty Boop. There's other folks that look like, from like the Steamboat Willie, era of Mickey Mouse cartoons and things like that. There's Popeye and Olive Oil kind of look-alike folks in here. So just about any 1930s cartoon that you can think of is kind of represented in some way. And to be honest, like not all of that is flattering. And so everything in Cuphead is done, I feel, very tastefully and very respectfully. But there is some stuff from that era that is questionable in terms of its, and in some cases not just questionable, but outright like not okay by today's standards, and likely shouldn't have been okay by those standards either. But it was a different time. So one of those things is in the 1930s, a lot of even Bugs Bunny cartoons are notorious for their negative portrayal of Black or African American characters. And so a lot of times they would be the butt of jokes. They would be not shown as very intelligent, or they would be shown in some way that was bad or evil, as compared to, say, the heroes, which were generally like white or lighter colored. Some could argue back in the days of black and white, it was easier to have, black be good, white, or black be evil, white be good, because of the contrast and things like that. And I don't know. Some stuff I look at from the 1930s and I go, wow, that is so racist. And it's just blatant. People are taking issue with this in Cuphead, because in Cuphead, the game is called Don't Deal with the Devil. So, slight spoiler. mute for like the next maybe 2 minutes if you don't want to hear this. But so spoiler begin. Cuphead begins with Cuphead and his friend Mugman, both who have cups as heads, hence Cuphead and Mugman as their names. They love to gamble, and they're in a casino, and they're on a hot winning streak at the craps table. And the devil comes rolling in and says, "Hey, I'll make a deal with you. If you can, you roll another set of good numbers, I'll give you the entire casino." And so, Mugman tries to say, no, Cuphead, don't do it. It's not worth it. Cuphead's like, I can't lose. Throws the dice, loses. So the devil gets their soul. The devil in this case is a black-skinned character. And so a lot of folks are saying that, that this makes the game Cuphead as racist as a lot of the original content. I think the difference between Cuphead and some of that earlier stuff is, if you look at it, really, there's a couple different ways that you could interpret it. In this case, yes, okay, the devil, obviously like an evil character, bad guy type character, but also like in this case, the devil is like, he's in a position of wealth and power. So I wouldn't say I wouldn't interpret having a dark, toned character in a position of wealth and power as being a slam on that particular like race. There's definitely no indication in the game. Like if you look the way the devil doesn't look like a person any more than Cuphead looks like a person. So I don't see Cuphead and Mugman as being two white people. I see them as being two cups that happen to have people like bodies. And so really they're they have a gender, at least in as much as they look male and they talk like they're male and everything. But I don't know that Cuphead and Mugman really have a race, mainly because it all depends on what's in the cup, right? One of the special moves that you can get is that you can, turn your head and shoot a steaming cup of Joe at people. So is it coffee black or is it coffee white that's in the cup? That interesting question. I'll like throw it out to you guys. Um, so I think the question should be: was the intent of the Cuphead creators to demote or denigrate people of color, African Americans, etc.? I don't think that that's the case. I think that they were intending to try to like harken back to an earlier era. I think, like I said, they borrowed a lot of stuff. You can see Betty Boop in there. You can see Popeye. You can see original Mickey Mouse in there. There's lots of stuff in there that they kind of pay homage to. And so, if anything, they might be guilty of being accidentally racist, right? It might not have occurred to them that a trope of that era was to have black characters be either lesser intelligence or evil in some way, and they might have just kind of fallen into that trap. Kind of like I feel like a lot of people were asking when, and even I was asking when Resident Evil 5 came out. I don't know if a lot of people really remember when Resident Evil 5 had one of its early trailers come out that had I think it was Chris Redfield, walking through Africa, shooting the infected, who were all African people. When I saw that, I was like, this is definitely cringeworthy. How could how could Capcom have thought it was okay to make a 5-minute trailer of a white guy walking through an African village killing a bunch of African people? Like that to me seems really bad. Cuphead having a black devil, I think, is something totally different, completely different level. I don't think either of those, to be clear. I don't think Capcom doing what they did with Resident Evil 5 was attempting to be racist any more than Cuphead was. But that said, like I could definitely see how the Capcom Resident Evil 5 one was immediately picked up that way. Because me as a white guy, I was watching it going like, I'm disturbed by watching this, and not because it's a Resident Evil game. I'm not disturbed because of jump scare or freaked out or whatever. I'm disturbed because I see a single white guy walking through a village taking out, all these other people. So I think in general, it is something that creators, whether you're Capcom or whether you're the studio that's making Cuphead or whatever, I think it is important for them to kind of hear the feedback from people and from the community. How do people interpret? Because art is kind of an interpreted form, right? People can create it and have whatever intent they want, but then when people consume it, they decide, is this art? Is it not? Is this awesome? Does this suck? Right? Like, how do I interpret this? And if people are interpreting it as being, racist, it would be interesting to see them address it in some way, either explain what their thought was behind it, that kind of thing, or maybe in an update, right, like shift the color to like make the devil slightly gray or something like that. I don't know how doable that is. I don't know how possible that is, but certainly we've seen Overwatch make massive changes to their platform and their characters based on user feedback. So I don't think it's unheard of in this day of after release patches to have it happen. So let's see what some of the comments are here in the Jeremy. Do you want to share some of the comments that we've had in the chat?
Yes. Let me go find it real quick. G made a few good points. His first was, I really think people are really way too much into it. I doubt it's supposed to have any kind of racism, racial symbolism. He also says it reminds him of the Shadow the Hedgehog scandal when the game came out because he's black, because he's a black hedgehog, and he carried a gun.
Wow,
that's really black alien.
I had no idea that there was that kind of a that Shadow the Hedgehog was. Wow. Now this is an interesting thing, right? I mean, there is this whole like. Me personally, this is how I interpret like having a black devil or having like a shadow Sonic and things like that, right? Like if we take humanity out of it for a moment, we take race and people and everything out of it for a moment, and we just look at physics, right? So in the physical world, we look at light, right? What do you get from light? You get warmth, you get energy. Things grow because of light. So we associate light with good. What is the strongest form of light? Pure whiteness. Not talking skin color. Absolutely not talking skin color. But I'm talking the color white is the brightest light that you can get. And so if you're an artist, right, it would be natural to say, okay, well, good guy, right? If good that guy is good and light is good and it does all these good things, right? Like I will project that with this color, right? Now if we look at darkness, what is darkness? Darkness is black, right? The color black. The color black is the absence of light, right? So if I take away the sun, for example, so Earth got no light, Earth would be cold, Earth would be dark, and Earth would be lifeless. So if you want something cold, dark, and lifeless, right, as your representation of the devil, then it would make sense to have him be the opposite end of the spectrum as light. And so I think a lot of times this whole like evil being black and good being white has nothing to do with color of a person's like person color, race, or skin. I think it's entirely to do with physical properties that we see of light and darkness in the real world that are independent of the existence of humans. So and as G, I think this is kind of along the lines of what G is saying, that like, maybe there is some symbolism there to the light versus dark, black versus white, but I don't necessarily think, and it looks like at least some of our viewers don't think that this is because of some kind of sinister black person versus white person type of thing. Like we might be misinterpreting the symbolism for something that it's not meant to be. Let's see what L says. L says, I understand Merry Melodies, Looney Tunes, Tom and Jerry, etc. had some sensitive jokes that would never see the light of day on TV today. L, that's absolutely 100% correct. So I do want to be sure to acknowledge, and it wasn't just Tom and Jerry, right? Like Bugs Bunny had some stuff in there as well. So absolutely back in the early days of film and cartoon, there were some things there that would not fly today. So I don't see any of that in Cuphead so far. I've only beaten the first island because the game is insanely difficult. And there's a lot of people dogging on the game because of the difficulty level, which I think is like a not a legit reason to dog, but I think it's a legit discussion to have. It's a very difficult game, and so some people are like, "Am I only getting this game because it's a difficult game?" I would ask you this: did you only get Mega Man because it was a difficult game? No, you got it because the graphics were good, the gameplay was tight, and the game didn't give you anything for free. So when you beat a boss in Mega Man, you earned it and you felt that victory in a very real way. Cuphead is like the Mega Man of this generation, really. That's what Cuphead is. It doesn't give anything away. Yes, it is ridiculously difficult, but it's not impossible. You can sit down and make it through the level. It's just how much punishment are you willing to endure before you pick up the patterns, before you realize the correct set of weapons or upgrades to have in what order, right? And they even offer you a simple or a regular mode. So if regular is too intense, you can go down to simple. It's not going to let you unlock the ending, beating things with simple, but you will still be able to go through levels, collect coins, get your upgrades, and then go back and take those guys to school with all your upgrades. So the only thing I've seen, right now, the existence of a Black Devil, I'm going to say I'm with G. Like, I don't see that as an intention to be racist. I just see them as doing the age old light versus dark, right? Sun is on, it's daytime, versus sun is gone, it's nighttime. Like that's the only symbolism I think that they're really going for. And I see no indication throughout any of the rest of the game that I've played so far. If I do find anything that screams like, wow, that's not right, kind of like the Resident Evil 5 trailer did to me, I'll be sure to let you guys know. So but I don't see that. I don't see that so far. And I'm going to have to look up this scandal on Shadow the Hedgehog. I had no idea. Lister's Mate says somebody's always going to try to play the racist card no matter what kind of media it is, from video games to everyday art. While I do think that that's true, I 100% agree with that, Lister. There's always, you could live in a city filled with gold, right? And have people, the city could be made of gold, and there'll be somebody walking around going, "Why is everything so yellow?" Right? Like, I mean, that's gonna happen. That said, I think that it is appropriate for us to review things like personally, I have no issues with Cuphead, but I feel like the Resident Evil 5 trailer with Chris going through that village, even though it is a legit part from the game and in the context of the game, it's fine, it makes sense. That should not have been in their trailer to market the game. That was a ridiculously bad move. And I I don't think it was their intent to be racist. But definitely in the day and age that we live in, with shootings and all this other stuff going on, I don't think that we really need video game trailers of white men walking into groups of black people and mowing them down. I don't need that. I don't want to see that. So I think it's right to ask, but I don't think that we should be looking to find it where it doesn't exist, I guess. So but that's hard because it's subjective, right? Everybody's going to interpret it in a different way. If you're somebody that grew up on a lot of those cartoons and now you see it coming back, you're like, hey, I thought we were past this, and then here I see a Black Devil. So I could kind of understand it hitting some people maybe harder than others. Worth having the discussion, but we should be able to discuss it. Like, I don't think that we should be banning the game and all that kind of stuff. L says, until now, I've only heard criticism of its difficulty. Difficulty of a game is not an objective criticism, in my opinion. Crash Bandicoot and Sonic Mania got similar treatment in terms of difficulty. Yeah, I think it's okay to like mention that a game is difficult. What I don't like seeing, L, here's what I don't like seeing. What are your thoughts on this, Jeremy? Because you've rage quitted and thrown a few controllers in your N64 days. Like, I see people saying, I'm not picking up Cuphead because it looks like it's just too damn hard. Like, I'm going to pass on Cuphead because, I'm not a glutton for punishment, and I don't want to play a game just because it's hard.
I mean, who doesn't hate glutton for punishment? But if you're not for a challenge, you must stop gaming. At least give it a try.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
it's
Sonic.
Not an easy game. Go play something like, I don't know, Mario Paint.
Yeah. I mean, Sonic, if you think about it, right? Sonic, if you just try to play the game, right? Sonic can be a pretty challenging game. I don't know that it's Cuphead challenging, but there are certainly some levels, like the water levels and things like that. Like the biggest thing that you have to fight against in Sonic is the speed, I feel like. Sonic can move so fast and go so quick, but most of the game actually requires patience. So that's a really clever trick that they kind of play on you. That you have this character that can move so fast, and the system can render it without any frame skip or anything like that. But if you try to just blow through these levels, you're going to get owned like in short order. But people power through the difficulty, learn the patterns, learn the placement, and they figure out how to get in a rhythm and get through the game. Cuphead is no different. So,
it's almost time, by the way.
Okay, thank you for the heads up on that. I was going to lose track. L, I appreciate your comment there. He says plenty of gaming channels and blogs, but this is why Retro Reload is the best. Great points all around. I'm always saying, L, love us or hate us as long as you rate us. So I might as well get the plug out now for folks that are watching us live on YouTube. Thank you very much, especially folks that are in the chat. We love getting your comments because without your comments, it's just my opinion. And I don't think my opinions are anything great or special. I don't even think the things that I say are always 100% correct. So I appreciate getting your take on it and how you feel about things because it makes it kind of more of like a community show. But if you don't catch us on YouTube, you can always still find us on Roku. We are on Roku, so you can check us out there. And again, if you like the show, make sure to give us a review of however many stars you feel. It really helps us on the platform that we're on. If you like, share, encourage your friends to subscribe. Back to some of the other comments. G says, Capcom also thought it was a good idea to leave fake body parts scattered around London as a scavenger hunt to promote Resident Evil. Oh my god. Are you serious? Wow. I'm gonna have to go look that up. I didn't hear about it. Now that I think about it, I vaguely remember something about that. But oh my goodness.
Did it what's that game called? The hacking game that's on PS4 and Xbox. I think they had a promotion like that, like Light Brights or something. I put them around the city. Just swore something like that happened.
Yeah, but Light Brights versus dismembered body parts.
I don't know, man. I would still be one of those Light Brights for old time's sakes.
Yeah, but supposedly to advertise the movie this one firm was tying red balloons to sewer grates randomly throughout the city.
They put actual clouds down there. That'd be more entertaining.
So I mean, there is a line, I guess, and I guess what we're saying, folks, is that I think it's always appropriate to review whenever you're in a creative medium. I think it's appropriate prior to release to not just review it yourself, but maybe let a few folks that you trust
have a PR firm look it over.
Yeah. If you can't afford a PR firm, it could even just be like a nice, diverse.
I'll tell you.
Yeah, get a nice, diverse set of level-headed friends, right? And be like, what do you think? What do you see in this? And if they come back and say, like, that looks like some disturbing stuff, I think people are going to get pretty offended. If if you say, now wait, why, right? Because you're thinking, oh, offended, of course, because it's a scary thing. And no, offended because you're blowing away like 10 black guys in like 2 seconds into the video. Like that you don't see a problem with that? Oh, so you think people will think that's racist? Oh yeah, dude, like wicked racist. Like that's like textbook racism. Okay, that's not what we intended. Maybe we should show some other clips from other parts of the game. Or not exclusively show this section. Maybe we show other sections because what happened was the character Shiva, like back to the Capcom, right, Resident Evil 5, the one of the companion characters that you get, Shiva, um, was a black character. And now people had to wonder, like, is this character added in after the fact to like backpedal and say, hey, we're not racist because look, like your companion, you've got this black character as your companion, or was that always planned? And of course, Capcom's like, oh, well, this was always planned. Well, she was nowhere in the trailer. So, had you maybe shown a trailer of her going through that village, you could have had the exact same trailer. The only difference could have been use the Shiva character instead of Chris, and there would have been no question about whether or not you guys were racist and whether or not, right, this was on the level and all that other stuff. So it's just, maybe pre-screen some of this stuff, ask the question yourself, if I was in the demographic, right, that's predominant in this piece of the media, like how would I interpret this? How would I take this? And it's never too late to say, you know what, that I know what I was going for, but that's not right. And maybe I need to go back to the drawing board. So
Let's wrap this up. There we go.
I guess we'll wrap this up with the last bits on some people's comments about hard games. Let's see. Lister's Mate says, I wouldn't be learning to play the violin if it wasn't hard. Once someone masters it, it's a beautiful thing. Hashtag just saying. You know what, Lister? I agree. That's a good point, right? Should we not learn to play guitar? Should we not learn to play violin? Should we not learn to play piano or read sheet music because it's hard? Should we not learn math because it's hard, right? And then wonder why, we can't manage a budget or things like that. Like, no, like sometimes, people ask me how I do what I do in my day job, which I'm a software engineer. I also run a data center and I do all this stuff. Requires a lot of troubleshooting, a lot of figuring out why doesn't this work, all this other stuff. Sometimes I'm like literally the help me Obi-Wan, you're my only hope guy, right? Like sometimes the developer that wrote the software doesn't know why it's not running right on the hardware or whatever. And it's like, really, I'm the best that you got? Okay, cool. That's fine, but I'm not really all that magic. I'm gonna Google it, I'm gonna look things up, I'm gonna go read a book, I'm gonna learn some stuff, I'm gonna dig into the code, see what's going on, I'm gonna take a look at the hardware and what makes it tick. And people ask, like, how can you think to do all this stuff? And it's because I lived in a day where we didn't have the internet. There was no cheat guide, right? And if it wasn't in Nintendo Power or you couldn't afford Nintendo Power, right, and your parents weren't going to let you run, call the 900 number, there was no way in hell that you were going to get past that part of the game. So you tried everything. If it was an adventure game and you had an inventory, you tried everything in the inventory against everything, no matter how much or how little sense it made, right? Like you brute forced your way through games like Maniac Mansion. You brute forced your way through games like Mega Man. Like, well, maybe if I try the ice thing, maybe if I try the needle thing, maybe if I try the spark thing. Oh, the spark thing works. Yeah, next time I use the spark thing. So I think that those original Nintendo hard and Sega hard games, gave us a tenacity, and gave us a never gonna die kind of spirit and mentality that I know has helped me out in my work. So I think you're exactly right, Lister's Mate. That's the totally right attitude to have. Like, why do we do hard things? Because we want to show that we're up to the challenge. We want to learn. We want to grow. We want to improve. That's why to do it. G to the next level says, why play something that's not a challenge? There's a big difference between being challengingly difficult and just unfairly difficult. I agree. No part of Cuphead feels cheap to me. Every hit, every death, yep, that was all me. And they just keep on coming. So, and you either get better or you step down the difficulty or you just give up and say, I don't do hard things. So, that said, if you're somebody that likes more of a casual gaming experience, more of a leisurely stroll type experience, there's nothing wrong with that either. We don't all have to like the same kind of games, but certainly, anybody that likes difficult games, if you like beautiful games, you like challenging games. If you like Contra, if you like Gradius, Nemesis, all these other games, give Cuphead a shot. I think you're really gonna like it. So, Lister made a comment back to the Capcom thing. We'll end on this one. Is that why there was so many feet washing up on the Pacific coast a few years ago? Lister, I have no idea what that's in reference to, but definitely hook us up with a link after the show because now you got me curious. So, folks, what do you think? Right? Have you played Cuphead? Have you seen Cuphead? At least seen the videos? What are your thoughts? Does it strike a chord in you that maybe they crossed over a line in their desire to give an homage and write a love letter to the 1930s? Do you feel like they brought some stuff back that was better left in the past? What about the difficulty? Has the difficulty, either made you excited to play it because maybe you haven't played enough difficult games these days, or has it kind of put you off that maybe not me, not now? Love to hear your feedback. As always, either here on YouTube or on the Twitter. Love us or hate us as long as you rate us.